Hello, I'm Carolyn Herbert from the Finance News Network, and joining me from lithium explorer Latin Resources is Managing Director Chris Gale. Chris, welcome to FNN.
Thanks for having us, Carolyn.
Now, Chris, can you start by giving us an introduction to Latin Resources?
Sure. Latin Resources has been operating in South America now for 8 years. We initially explored Peru, and we've got 2 projects there. We have a copper project which is joint ventured out to a company called First Quantum Minerals. First Quantum are a large Canadian copper producer, and we also have a mineral sands project there. Of late, over the last 6 months, we've been exploring Argentina. We've come across some great lithium projects and hard rock lithium, which are pegmatites, and we currently started drilling. So, very exciting times for us.
And Chris, looking more closely at the company's Catamarca Lithium project in Argentina, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, we have 3 projects now in Argentina. Catamarca was the first project that we actually secured. It's 100% owned by Latin Resources. We have over 70,000 hectares there. We also have another project called St. Luis, which is in another province of Argentina. We have 24,000 hectares of pegmatite concessions in that district. And we've also optioned up a project in the district of Salta. That's more of a tantalum lithium type project, but we need to do a bit more work there. But the work we're focusing on at the moment is Catamarca, and we've just started drilling on that project.
And Chris, what's the next step in proving up the resource?
Well, as I mentioned, we've started drilling. We'll initially drill Catamarca. Catamarca will be 3,000 metres of drilling, 28 holes over the next 2 or 3 weeks, RC drilling. So we'll have assays coming out towards the end of February on that project. We'll then look at, if we don't need to continue any more drilling, we'll move the rigs down to St. Luis, our second project, which is basically the same thing as Catamarca, which is old spodumene mines, lithium mines that were mined in the 30s and 40s. So we'll drill St. Luis. We'll move a team up into Sultana, the Salta project, to carry out some due diligence. What we want to try and actually find out is which project's going to be the best project for us to actually spend more time, more money on to define a JORC resource. So that's, the initial drilling is basically exploratory. That will give us some good grades, hopefully, and then we can determine which project we want to focus on after that.
And now to your concessions in San Luis, are there any conditions attached to those?
No, they're 100% owned. We've been operating in South America for a long time. We prefer to have our concessions 100%. And saying that though, we have a very good potential project up in Salta, which we've optioned up to eventually potentially take that project over at 100% level as well.
And Chris, at what point will you have a JORC resource?
Well, that's a good question. Once we've determined which project we are to define that JORC resource, we would think it would take probably 2 to 3 months to complete that round of drilling, have the assays out. We're aiming for the end of June, so second quarter. It may head into the third quarter, but more likely we'd like to think we can have that completed by the end of June. What size of resource you're probably going to ask next, we're not sure, but I will say that if you look out there at the other players, there's 60 explorations, the known lithium explorers in the Australian Stock Exchange. 6 of those players have a JORC resource, and they go from all the way from 120 million tonnes down to around 30 million tonnes. When you're dealing with lithium, our view is that 1 million tonnes run of mine will normally, at a reasonable grade of lithium, Li2O, would probably produce around 100,000 tonnes of spodumene. So we're not looking for 1 billion tonnes at 0.5% like you do in copper. This is something that we think is very, very achievable to have a JORC resource by the end of June.
And Chris, what's your funding position looking like for 2017?
We currently have around $1 million in the bank. Interesting enough, March the 9th, we have 2-cent options that expire. We hope to have those options in the money, and if that is proven that we can have those options in the money, we actually have 330 million options out there. That'll bring roughly in about $6 million. So that'll be a great outcome for Latin Resources, but we've got to get the results and the fundamentals to allow that to happen, in my view.
And finally, Chris, where would you like to see Latin Resources 6 months from now or in the longer term?
Well, what our objectives are and our milestones are over the coming months is obviously to get some drilling completed define which project we're going to focus on. From that point, we'll move into a JORC resource over the next 3 to 6 months. And this company is all about going into production with lithium, with spodumene concentrate. So long way to go yet, but ultimately in 12 months' time, I'd like to think we'd perhaps have a PFS, a pre-feasibility study completed, and moving into designing in our plant.
Chris Gale, thanks for the introduction to Latin Resources.
Thanks for having me, Carolyn.